Welcome to another episode of Frecovery Friday. And this week, we are broadcast outside of Park City, Utah on our end. And Blake, where are you at right now?
I am in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
So complete extremes. And we are so thrilled. Just a little bit of backstory with Blake. Blake and we connected on LinkedIn here just a couple of weeks ago when I was reaching out and wanting to find innovators and people who are in the space of addiction recovery. And you and I had a conversation, and it was just evident to me that we had to have you on the show. So Blake, why don't you share just a little bit about who you are, your background? I know that you work with Recovery Unplugged out there in Florida. Mm-hmm. Maybe tell us just a little bit about that, and then we'll get started with our little chat.
Okay, yeah. So I'm here with Recovery Unplugged. We are in Florida, but we're also in Texas, and we're in Virginia. Our in-network facilities up in Virginia. We're out in Austin. I mean, we're all over the place. We're starting to open up in Tennessee and in Dallas. So it's really been cool. I kind of came on board right as they're doing this big expansion, and it's been really exciting. Just watching what Recovery Unplugged does, and I know you know a little bit about us, but the innovative approach that we have using music and infusing it in all the evidence-based practices, it's just so exciting and refreshing to work for a treatment center that's doing something a little bit different. And besides that, you mentioned earlier you wanted me to talk a little bit about myself. So I also go into middle schools and high schools and colleges in the area and do some educational seminars, totally separate from Recovery Unplugged. And I'm in the process, coming towards the end, of publishing a book as well that's geared towards families that struggle, kind of the whole family system as pertaining to addiction.
Exciting. Hey, I want to give a shout out to someone we both know. Hey, Tristan, welcome to the show, my friend. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
What's up, brother?
We're thrilled to have you on here. And honey, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you get Blake going here?
Blake, that is so awesome. I love that you're talking to the schools and you're really reaching out, at that demographic. I love that. Share with us a little bit, if you will, of how addiction has touched your life.
That's a good question, and I probably am not going to answer the way that you would suspect. I mean, addiction touched my life. Of course, 6 years ago, it affected me terribly. It destroyed my relationships. I mean, it did what addiction does. It destroys everything in our lives and leaves us kind of bare bones, without a personality, without an identity, and without family, because we've done so much damage. So, I mean, that was 6 years ago, but I guess if you were to ask me that today, how addiction has touched my life, not that I'm advocating for somebody to develop a substance use disorder, but it's changed my life dramatically. I mean, the fact that I went through what I went through, it's made me who I am today. And it's made me a grateful person. So that's how addiction has touched my life, is it's brought me a sense of gratitude.
Oh, I love that. And any way you answer the question is going to be perfect, but that was so amazing. I love it.
So we have, I know there's a couple of things we wanted to talk about with you, Blake, that I'm really intrigued with. I know at one point you were involved in a lot of nutrition and how that relates to recovery. So maybe we can talk about that. I know something else that you're super passionate about, which I want to dig into. We have 9 children. And so the work that you're doing in schools, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, 9. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, right there.
Only 9, huh?
Right.
Get me, guys, come on.
But we want to hear and have you talk a little bit about what you're doing in the schools and why that's important to you and the impact that has. And then with any of the time we have left, I want you to share even more about your book and what you're doing with that and what kind of inspired that. So let's start with the nutrition piece and where you see that connecting in because that wonder about everything they can do to find their soul and their body when it comes to recovery. So let's start there.
Okay. And I don't know if the service is going in and out at all right now. For me, it's so just stop me if you can't hear me.
Yeah, you keep going. It's a little choppy, but we're going to make it through.
Except for now.
Maybe. Please hold.
Oh, there he is.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, I can see you guys again as well. Okay, so I heard bits and pieces of what you said, but I think I know where you wanted me to go. You know what? It's frozen again. Is it for you guys? No? Okay.
We're good on our end.
Okay, then maybe it's just me, and thank you, Comcast. So as far as the nutrition goes, it's something that I've been passionate about because early in my recovery, when I was in treatment, I couldn't take any of the medications that they were trying to give me. Some of them caused allergic reactions as bad as causing hallucinations and paranoia. I mean, so I've always been seeking some type of natural way to supplement that. And we know that in early recovery, our bodies are so depleted and our brains specifically are so depleted of different chemicals. And we basically tortured ourselves. We were malnutritioned. We weren't eating because either we couldn't eat because we were sick, or we weren't eating because we didn't want to ruin the high. So our bodies are craving nourishment. So there's a number of amino acids out there. I mean, really ranging a huge range of them that for me in my early recovery made a huge impact and got rid of some of those post-acute withdrawals. Without going into detail of which specific supplements, because there are a bunch of them depending on what you're struggling with, and I'd recommend seeing a nutritionist, honestly. It's just a reminder that we need to look at ourselves as a whole. And not just because we stop doing the drugs doesn't mean that we're fixed. I mean, we have to look at our mental health, but we have to look at our physical health as well. So exercise, eating right. How many people do you know as soon as they get sober, they start eating tons of chocolate and junk food and all this crap? Hear me all right still?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit there, brother. Let's give it a second. Just give it a second. Why don't you try it now?
Move. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. It's weird how you can move like 15 feet in your house and all of a sudden the service works better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what you heard there. A lot of, like I was saying, a lot of people just ignore the fact that their body needs nutrition and their body needs exercise, and their body is craving healing from all perspectives. So, and people just stop doing the drugs and alcohol and they forget that their body's been tortured for years. So I've been a big advocate for exercise and eating right in early recovery, especially. Not that you have to be perfect, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, honey, that's something. So you're big into, all those supplements and different things. It's something that even when we first met, you talked a lot about. What do you think? Like, how do you see it? Because, we have different perspectives of recovery and everything else, but he brings up some really interesting points about, and by the way, I saw that even, the second you get off a bunch of drugs, you just find something else to get addicted to, right? To sugar, to junk food, right. Whatever the case may be, to kind of fix, feed those unresolved feelings or whatever the case may be that we were using drugs for. But honey, maybe you talk a little bit, or what do you think about this?
Oh, I think it's so important. And I have talked to so many people helping them into treatment and talking about the fact that we need to look inside. Absolutely. This is a deep inside work, right? But if we're not feeling good and we're not functioning up here well either, that we could do all the work we want on the inside, but it's not going to have the impact or the staying power, if you will, if we're really addressing the body as a whole and as a partner of this. We want to really mind, body, and spirit. They all go together. So I love what you're saying. It makes a ton of sense. I've shared not to the details that you have, but I've shared with people how important that part is, all the way through what you're saying, including to sleep. I mean, when we're sleeping and you're in recovery, detoxing, whatever it is, that's when your body has the most time to really start healing. So when we put all those pieces together, it's, that's the recipe for success. So I love that you are bringing awareness and you're teaching people about that piece.
And the sleep, that was one of the supplements that we created. Unfortunately, the company is no longer in business, just because it was kind of a little adventure of mine, and I didn't realize how much it was going to cost to compete in the supplement market. But this sleep supplement that we had, that was huge. And I had people writing me almost daily, giving me reviews saying like, this has changed the game for me. And there are natural things out there. You shouldn't have to take, and if you do have to take it, okay, it's totally fine. But a lot of people are taking antidepressants or antipsychotics to go to bed. They're being prescribed in a treatment center. Drugs that are not meant for sleep. So, and there's natural remedies out there, even as simple as melatonin or GABA, L-theanine. There's a lot of things out there that you can take that can help you with sleep. That doesn't have to be an antidepressant.
Yeah, and again, going back to what both of you have said, I think it's important that anyone who's considering different nutraceuticals, nutrition, supplements, please seek out professional guidance when doing that, because we are all a little different in our body chemistry. And the other thing too is that we may need different things at different stages. Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Danny. Hey, Danny, thanks for joining us today. We are talking with Blake Cohen from out there in Fort Lauderdale, and we're really having some good conversation around nutrition and how that relates to recovery. I want to switch gears though for a minute, and I want to go into the work that you're doing in the schools. And so tell us, I do a lot of speaking myself, and one of the things that I get asked all the time, like, how do you get started? How did you get started, Blake, in speaking? And maybe tell us about the organization that you've been a part of.
So yeah, the company that I work with is called Living Skills in the Schools. It's based in only Palm Beach County. I actually appreciate, because it's local. It's where I grew up. I was born in Palm Beach County in Boca Raton. And so it's really nice to speak to some of the students who have the same playing field that I have. So it's been really cool. And they have an understanding, and they relate to me when I tell them that just because you're from Boca Raton and from a nice Jewish family in Boca Raton, Florida, it doesn't mean that you're exempt to addiction problems. So it's great. And I get to use my educational background as well. And I go in and I do all types of educational seminars about opioids, about vaping, which it blows my mind how some of these kids are that know what vaping is. There was a 6th grade class I was in the other day, and I asked how many of them have vaped, and half of the class raised their hand. So it's really scary. And they have these jewels in their backpack, and they're blowing it into their backpack. It's scary. And, we know that nicotine is just a precursor for addiction. It's setting your brain chemistry up at a young age, setting you up for addiction. So it's probably the most rewarding thing that I do, I would say. And it's been really cool because it's totally separate from the treatment world and everything else. Going into these schools, it's been amazing.
So if someone were to ask you, they want to get started with speaking, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to just start locally, start asking around, start looking for resources, use your connections with other people as an asset to you, and to just put yourself out there. And my other suggestion is to put together a presentation for students, and don't just go in and tell your recovery story, because sometimes they're not going to relate to it. My suggestion is to do some research, do some work, put some time into it, and put together a presentation that's geared towards students that they can relate to. Just because you're in recovery and you're a good speaker doesn't mean you could be a speaker in a school.
Wow, that's awesome.
Good.
Thank you. So with the time that we have left, I know you're super passionate, and we're very intrigued. What can you tell us about this book, this project? It sounds like you're down the road fairly far with it. So why don't you share a little bit about whatever you want to about the book?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, no pun intended, I'm an open book. So it's been a creative project of mine. I'm a big believer in, I don't have a vision board per se, but I'm a big believer in visualization. So I have these note cards of things I've always wanted to do, and to write a best-selling book. And this may not be it, but I just said, now's the time, and I'm gonna put pen to paper, per se. I typed it, but I just started writing, and the idea of the book is not to be my story. My story's not that interesting. The idea of the book is to be geared towards the family system. So it's 3 short stories. It's called I Love You More. And it's 3 short stories of addiction, of recovery, and of overdose and death. So it's a pretty heavy subjects. It's very emotional. And the goal of it is to give people insight into what it's like for the substance abuser themselves, so that somebody can read these stories and say, oh, I never really thought about that. I guess it was like that from my parents. Or I never really understood why my son, with all of the consequences that's happened, that's landed him in jail, why is he still using? What goes on in his head? What are his thoughts like? So the idea is to give insight. They're written in a very easy way. It's an easy to read way. And the idea is that it can be used as a tool, an educational tool, for families and, like I said, substance abusers, or anybody who wants to learn about addiction and what it's like living in a household with somebody struggling. So it also is tied, at the end, it's tied together with discussion questions so that people can read the emotions and see how they felt through it, and really talk about it out loud, and think about what they just read. So it really helps offer perspective to people. And I guess the ultimate goal is to help break stigma from all aspects, all sides of it, from the addict stigmatizing their parents, who their parents just don't understand, or they don't get what's going on with their parents, and why are their parents being so tough on them, or why are they falling apart, from the parents destigmatizing their addict.
Oh, we lost him.
Yeah.
For a second.
Was it cutting out there?
Yeah.
You know what, Blake? I love what you're sharing about the book. I mean, those are such important aspects that don't really get heard that often. That's a perspective that gets to be shared. I love that you're doing it in stories. And the part about breaking the stigma, we're big about breaking that stigma.
Right.
These are good people. Addiction's not a moral issue. You're not a bad person. So I love that. Plus, being a mom of 9, I use that phrase all the time. I love you more. And it's so, seriously, so perfect. So thank you for doing that work. That's so awesome.
Well, I'll definitely, as soon as it comes out, I'll get you guys a copy, of course.
All right. Well, Blake, thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who are just joining us or want more information, we hold Frecovery Friday and this talk show every single Friday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Our guest today has been Blake Cohen from Recovery Unplugged. If you want more information about nutrition in recovery, or how to get started with speaking, or you want to know more about his book, please reach out. You can either comment. He's easy to find on social media. But Blake, thank you so much for being a part of this with us today. I'm so excited that we're connected. And until next time, everybody, please stay connected. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.